Okay, so sometimes that I like to cover some issues that are kind of, I don't know, what we would call non-mainstream. And I think that's important because I think the mainstream is so far behind reality or hiding reality that it keeps us from knowing the truth. And one of those issues that we've covered in the past and people have asked me to cover again is this idea of chemtrails. And we have the author of a book. The name of the book is Chemtrails Exposed, a New Manhattan Project. The author's name is Peter Kirby. Peter, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here. So give us a little bit of your background and how you got involved in this topic.
Yeah, I don't really have experience in this area. It was just something I kind of took up, being that I was so offended by what I saw in the skies above me. I did have a decent education. I went to one of the best high schools in San Francisco. And, I've been growing up in and around San Francisco my whole life. I've been exposed to a lot of different ideas and a lot of different people. And I guess I had a decent background in that sense. But I originally got interested in the chemtrail issue just as something that I saw in the alternative media. I realized at one point that 9/11 was a grand conspiracy, and so I figured, okay, they got that one over on me. I believed the official story for about 8 years, and so I thought to myself, well, what else are they doing, if they're getting away with that? And so I, went to the alternative media. Actually, I think we should start calling it the new media, because the old... Yeah. Corporate media is dying, and I hope that we can put it out of its misery soon enough. But I turned to the alternative media and found all these stories, all these conspiracies, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. The levels of deception that are going on in our society and from our government are just absolutely mind-boggling. And but one of the stories I was exposed to was this idea that there were planes flying over, spraying stuff out of them, and I didn't believe it at first. I thought, well, that doesn't make sense, because America is the best place to live, and if you're doing that here in America, you're killing the goose that laid the golden egg. And I'm thinking their families would be affected, their lands, their properties, they themselves. So I just kind of wrote it off, and I didn't see any purpose to it, And at the time, I don't think people knew what was going on. Back in about 2010, as far as I could tell, gauging the state of the issue, it was largely that we basically had no clue what was going on, why these planes were flying over and spraying us. Since then, I think we've been largely coming to a consensus that it is a global weather modification project at its core. There are other things going on. Once you cross that Rubicon of just doing something like that openly above everybody's heads in the sky, you might as well tack on a whole bunch of other stuff. What else can you accomplish by spraying things out of planes? What else can you accomplish by shooting electromagnetic energy all over the place, which is a defining component of this new Manhattan Project, as I call it.
Well, there's so much to unpack in that. Let's kind of get your perspective on your experience. So you said for a long time that you didn't believe it. You saw it up there, you didn't want to dig in too deep, you didn't believe it. What was the evidence, or what was the experience that you had that said, okay, wait a second, this is not what they've been telling me this is. This is not a contrail at all. It's a chemtrail.
It was largely two things. It was largely just looking up and noticing that there were these giant lines in the sky and X's and things. It's one of those things that it's just it's in your subconscious if you're not consciously aware of it, And I, once I realized consciously what was going on, I also realized that subconsciously I had noticed these things for many years. So that was one. I saw them in the sky, and then the other thing was the Michael Murphy documentary of 2010, What in the World Are They Spraying?, which is available in its entirety on YouTube. And if people haven't seen that movie, I highly recommend it. Came out in 2010, and it featured, among other things, a career scientist by the name of Francis Mangels. I keep on mispronouncing his name, but it's Francis Mangels, and he's up there in Shasta County, and he was with the Forestry Department and the USDA for many years, many decades. He has a very good background in all these things, and because I'm not a science guy, I'm not a math and science guy. I'm more of a story guy. I'm more of a creative guy. But when I saw Francis Mangels in this movie, collecting these rainwater samples and samples from ponds and samples from snow and all these things showing these incredible amounts of aluminum, I said to myself, something's wrong here. And I've since come to know that Mangels has also been taking soil samples that show highly anomalous numbers on the pH. I believe the soils up there in Shasta where he is have gone very basic, and he's a master gardener, so he knows what he's talking about there. And then from there's just been basically an avalanche of scientific evidence for this, and all that I know of is in the book.
So why do you think that it's for weather modification? Because obviously with any conspiracy there's tons of different theories. Why are you going with the weather modification theory?
There's lots of evidence. Right off the top, the most well-known reason for planes spraying things, arguably besides crop dusting, is weather modification. The cloud seeding industry, where they spray silver iodide, this is something that has been around since 1947, and they've been spraying stuff out of planes routinely in many areas of the country, mostly the West. And then another.
Oh yeah, I remember when I was younger, I lived at a ski resort, and I actually worked at the ski resort, and they would seed the clouds all the time, and it was. Nobody thought it was a big deal. It was just, hey, we need a few extra inches.
Right. And the kicker is that there is a shocking lack of scientific studies. There is no long-term study, no public long-term study that I know of that has ever been done on the biological impacts of silver iodide, which is what they spray in the conventional cloud seeding industry. Of course, their industry association.
All right, sir. Hold on 1 second. We're up against a break. We'll continue right after this. Don't go anywhere.
I've been driving all night, my hands wet on the wheel.
All right, folks, you can go to peteracirby.com and get the book. Peter, we were talking earlier this week on the show about how grasshoppers are gone. I remember when I was a kid, I could walk across the yard and you would kick up grasshoppers this time of year all over the place. Just by shuffling your feet through the lawn, poof, 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 grasshoppers everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I have not seen a grasshopper now in a few years. Is this related to the phenomenon that you're talking about?
It may very well be. It may very well be. I've also been noticing a lack of birds. In recent years, it seems to me that bird populations have gone down quite a bit. I've also noticed that the plant life, the trees and the bushes and the shrubs and plants and everything are not as lush as they used to be. Again, Francis Mangels has provided us with some evidence for this. he says that when the environment is contaminated with these type of toxins, that smaller, what he calls, I believe, arthropods, smaller little, tiny little insect-type things start to go away. And this is, the basis of the food chain, or one of the, things lower down on the food chain that many animals, including ourselves, need to survive. And it's hard to nail down that whole situation right now, being that this isn't an evolving story, and the scientific studies on these type of things take a long time to come out. I mean, the first thing we have to do is realize that this is happening, and then secondly, we need people with reputable scientific backgrounds and reputable scientific organizations to conduct these studies. But I do believe in the coming years and decades, we will see studies coming out showing the very detrimental effects upon our environment that these geoengineering programs have incurred.
Yeah, but wouldn't that be the antithesis of what they're going for here? Because, I mean, if it's weather modification, they're going to say it's to save the planet from bad environmental effects, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's their cover story. Do you think the establishment was really trying to help us?
No, I'm just giving the side of the story there.
Yeah, I mean, I am asserting that the theory of man-made global warming was, at least in large part, concocted to cover up this program. I am asserting that this program, the New Manhattan Project, is the largest scientific endeavor in human history. And so I believe that they needed a cover story. And if you go back to 1958, is the earliest mention of the theory of man-made global warming that I have been able to find. And I'm talking man-made global warming. I understand there was some guy who hypothesized, before the internal combustion engine that carbon, made the Earth's temperature go up. But the earliest mentions of the theory of man-made global warming that I know of and have been able to find are in 1958 in weather modification documents. The earliest was, I believe, in Popular Science magazine. It was an article written by Howard T. Orville, who was the leading weather modifier at the time. He was a science advisor to the president and all this. He was one of the key figures at the time. He was the key figure in Popular Science. He wrote an article called "Weather as a Weapon," I believe, and as a part of that article, he stated the theory of man-made global warming, and then there were a couple of other very early examples, but all of the earliest examples of the theory of man-made global warming that I have been able to find have been in the context of weather modification documents. So
is this being used as a weapon then? Is it being used as a choke collar? Because I would think if they could modify the weather, why not produce lush crops? Why did California have to go through their drought? Why is it 105 degrees outside? Let's make it rain. Like, if we can just modify the weather, can we create a virtual paradise?
We could. These technologies may be used benevolently without spraying things out of planes. There is evidence that ambient atmospheric particles can be manipulated, and I believe the charging of the atmosphere, using the atmosphere as a capacitor, plays into this. And these may be things that are benign and that could help us with weather modification. But, what's going on here is that we don't have a benevolent establishment. We have a malevolent establishment, and they're trying to use this global weather modification not to help us, but as a large part, and maybe the largest part of bringing in their new world order.
So what about, people are reporting weird stuff on their cars after it rains now, like a mud-like substance or, almost like a gravy or something. Is this what happens when the chemical, in your opinion, is brought down too quickly, perhaps? Maybe, it was sprayed, it rains, and then it comes down?
Oh, it's hard to say. My position is that they've been spraying us with whatever they want, whenever they want, for 70 years. That's going back to the beginning of the project. Chemtrails, the phenomenon of this current New Manhattan project has been going on for about 20 years. I'm talking about large-scale domestic operations have been going on for about 20 years, since 1996. And if you read William Thomas's book, Chemtrails Confirmed, which is a great, incredible book. It was written in 2004. He was way ahead of his time. You see all these instances of all types of stuff being dumped on us, goo, and he recounts this goo that apparently he had sampled. He writes in the book that he had sampled at a lab, and it consisted of human blood cells. And then you look at the weather modification literature, and they've just been using just a myriad of substances over the years. That they've probably been experimenting with upwards of 50 different substances: lead iodide, urea, which is urine, all kinds of nasty stuff. I mean, and so there's a clause in the U.S. code that says it was actually only inserted there right about the time that large-scale spraying started in about 1996, but they've been apparently relying upon this code, this little loophole, this little clause that says that they can spray us with whatever they want, whenever they want, as long as it's done in the context of research. So, God knows what that was. God knows what they're doing. A lot of this work is speculation because they're not telling us. We just have to observe what's going on here and look at the available literature and kind of, there's a large portion of this research is reading tea leaves. And, if there's something on somebody's car that happens in the morning, God knows what that was.
Why don't they do this at night? I've thought to myself, wait a second, just do it when it's cloudy out so nobody sees it, or do it at night when everybody's in bed and it's dark. Why do it at noon on a sunny Tuesday when everybody can see the X's and O's?
Good question. That's a good question. I've definitely thought about that. Although I have seen some chemtrails at night, not very many. It's kind of a rarity. But, it's usually done in the day. And it may have something to do with, the fact that sunlight has an effect here, and an effect on the particles, and an effect on their operations. And generally speaking, there's less atmospheric activity at night. The sun tends to generate wind and generate atmospheric activity and generate things going on. It's kind of a catalyst for the atmosphere.
All right, sir, hold on one second. We're up against another break, but we'll continue after the commercials. Stay where you're at, folks. Talking to Peter Kirby. Peter8Kirby.com is the website. You can grab his book there. Now, Peter, okay, so let's say this is true. Let's say they're doing this. Where's the hard evidence? Where's the pilot standing in front of the plane saying, "Yep, here it is," or something? Because there are so many skeptics. Well, they're not even really skeptics. Real skeptics. There's so many doubters. Where's the evidence to kind of convince the world here this is?
Yes, there is hard evidence. Hard evidence does exist. We've already actually mentioned some of the hard evidence. I'm referencing a section in my book right now titled Hard Evidence. The rainwater sample test results people have been sampling rainwater all over the world. People who are aware of what's going on, they will see a sky with chemtrails and precipitation. If you can have a sky that you see both chemtrails and there's some rain coming down, you take a bowl, you put it out at least 8 feet above the ground, and you collect some rainwater, and you send it in to a lab. This is a very common procedure. Analysis of soil and water is that's how they make their money, these labs. And you send it off to them and ask them to test it for aluminum, barium, and strontium, and you get the test results back. And this is hard evidence. The trolls have been absolutely defeated on trying to, the doubters have been defeated on trying to establish that the anomalous levels of aluminum, barium, and strontium come from other sources. Of course, they suggest, well, it's coming over from China. They got big aluminum smelting plants over there, and it kind of wafts over here, and it shows up in 1 part per 1,000 or whatever it is, and it totally makes no sense at all. So there's plenty of hard evidence that type of hard evidence can be found on 3 different websites. The websites have been compiling these lab test results in PDF forms for many years now. GlobalSkywatch.com is one of them. ChemtrailsUK.com, or ChemtrailsProjectUK.com, and GeoengineeringWatch.org all have pages where they've been collecting these PDFs that people have sent into them. I was able to acquire some evidence that I find very convincing, even more convincing than the rainwater sample test results. The California Air Resources Board, until 2002, was sampling the air, the ambient air, for toxins, and they were sampling for aluminum and barium. And they provided me on their website many years ago. I took screen captures of these charts, and they're in the book. And they show that from right about the beginning of the project, and we know when the project began because of William Thomas's book. This is in the mid-'90s, right around 1996 is where I would pin it. Large-scale spraying operations began domestically, and you look at these graphs that the California Air Resources Board has produced, and you see that right around that time, 1996, aluminum and barium, ambient aluminum and barium in the atmosphere, the air that we breathe, started going up and up and up and up every year until 2002. And I have gathered, although the California Air Resources Board has not confirmed this with me because their public information officer refuses to talk to me. His name is Dmitry Stanich. Hi, Dmitry. He refused to talk to me, and he cut off the phone conversation. So, I'll just tell the story. But I have since gathered that it was the EPA that told the California Air Resources Board to stop sampling for ambient aluminum and barium. Meanwhile, the charts and graphs are showing that it's on the rise. It's going up. This is a problem. And, they just stop sampling and make the problem disappear. And then also the Arizona...
Well, what about the age-old argument? That if they're spraying the air, they're spraying themselves too?
Well, there are actually things people can do to protect themselves from all of this. If you have enough money, you can just pack up and go and live in a vacation home somewhere in the world where they're not spraying. That's a great thing. I mean, if you have enough money, you can have a giant yacht, and just park it out in the South Pacific, and just live there. There's many areas of the world where chemtrails are not sprayed. The chemtrails are sprayed mostly.
Yeah, but I mean like the pilots who are doing this, or the government officials who are doing it. I mean, even the president has to live in Washington, D.C., right? So that air is going to fall on all of the people who are supposedly behind this, isn't it?
Well, there are no pilots. I believe these are drones. The ability to fly giant jumbo jets remotely has been around for a long time. I see no reason for the people running this project to have planes with pilots. Pilots are a liability, big time, and they cost a lot of money. So, first of all, I don't think there are any pilots. The president, as far as the president is concerned in the Congress, who do you think the president in the Congress works for? Who are they subordinate to?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're not the people on top of the pyramid scheme, totally. But it's still this idea that, because that's one of the most common objections, that everybody gets sprayed if it's in the air. I mean, even the people who say, well, it's something that they're doing in China, well, that floats over here. The air is everywhere. But
right.
Let's kind of think about this in a different way. Let's just play devil's advocate. What if they're saving us from the dreaded global warming by reflecting the sun with the aluminum and barium? Isn't that a good thing?
Saving us from something that doesn't exist? Saving us from something that they've made up? No, it's a cover story. That's a cover story. It's a red herring. They're just.
So why are they doing it? Is it population control?
Well, that plays into it. What I present population control as an other agenda in the book. It's in the chapter Other Agendas. I have a chapter on motives, and this kind of circles back to the question that you asked earlier about why I think it's weather modification. In the motives chapter in my book, you see many motives for controlling the weather. It's godlike power. I mean, weather influences just about everything that we do all day. Weather is the economic impact of weather is measured annually in the trillions of dollars by the government. The hydroelectric power that is generated by precipitation has been a big catalyst over the years. Some of the earliest companies that were interested in weather modification were power companies, specifically Pacific Gas and Electric here in California. There's another one, Southern California Edison was another one. The Bonneville Power something or other up there in Seattle was another one. And that's big money. Oh, they've been able to make an absolute killing filling up the reservoirs with water that they use for hydroelectric power. We're talking returns of like 5 to 1. For every dollar they spend, they're getting like $4 or $5. Yeah, it's all in the book and in the literature. I mean, they jumped all over that very early on. Also, there is the weather derivatives market, which is a financial market that rises and falls with the weather. You can bet on on a daily temperature, average temperature of any day or group of days or even hours. You can bet on any geophysical condition. You can bet on wind speed, stream flow, precipitation, any geophysical condition. You can bet on it in the weather derivatives market. But the number one weather derivative is based on temperature. And this is specific to, most largely specific to the power industry as well. Again, the power industry. This is why the Department of Energy has been so involved in this all along. If a day's temperature is above 65 degrees, people use air conditioning. If a day's temperature is below 65 degrees, they use heat. And guess who founded the weather derivatives market? Enron.
Sure. Wow. All right, Peter. Well, I'm at the end of the show. People can grab the book, peterакirby.com. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Folks, that does it for today. I hope you have a wonderful, safe weekend. And whatever you do, we'll be back here on Monday. So remember, look into jury nullification. No victim, no crime. Today, tomorrow, and as always, may your path lead to heaven, and may freedom follow in your footsteps.